Welcome to You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we use our good and bad experiences, friendships, and passions to inspire thought-provoking conversation and soul-driven advice. This season, we'll travel from the fool's journey to the hero's adventure to better help you create a life worth living and step more brightly into yourself inch by inch. Tracy, hi. So,
you got something. You are.
I do have something. Although I have to tell you, I'm still thinking about last week's episode, the whole time thing. And then it was like I wanted to kind of continue that conversation, but we're not. But we are continuing the conversation on one small aspect of that conversation. And so I have a question for you. If I were to say everybody's doing it, what do you think I'm talking about?
This isn't a riddle. There's a real answer.
There's a real answer.
Oh, everybody's doing it. A brand new dance now? Is that a song lyric? I have a really good guess because I know what the title of the show is, but I feel like I'm cheating.
No, that's okay.
I think we're all aging.
We are. Everybody, even a brand new baby's aging too. And I think what happens is the connotation with the word aging is not a good one, right? Even though
I don't even think doctors or like geneticists would say babies and children are aging until a certain year of life.
But everybody's getting older every single day.
Well, our bodies are decomposing at a certain rate every single day. Older, that's a social construct.
All right. Well, I would like to think of my body decomposing as a social construct.
I'm totally stealing some of my thoughts. John Green likes to say that all the time. When he's like, maybe I'm dying. And he's like, well, everybody's dying. It's like, okay, thanks, John.
But it is true. But everybody is aging.
I do, not to shame people or pressure people, but there is like that one quote that most of the time I find inspiring and motivating, but not everybody has the ability to age, and everybody's given that gift of aging, right? Usually it's said to people when they're concerned about their appearance or things like that, but it is a gift to grow old, right? And so I think about that. What do you think about?
When I think about everybody, like I'm aging every single day, it's fine. I mean, because I think I've gone through ebbs and flows of how I feel about aging. Now, granted, I was given the gift of growing up with my mother, who never seemed to age.
Ooh, and so she's come up in 2 episodes in a row. It's been a while.
Yeah. So when I think about her coming to school when, say, I was in 3rd grade, she was 36 when I was born. So she was 46 when I was in 3rd grade. Somewhere
Wait, your mom
there.
was a geriatric mom?
Yes.
That gives me hope. Not that I think that my biological clock is ticking, but you picture everybody's having babies when they're 20 at her age, right?
Well, and this was, she had a baby at 36 when people weren't having babies at 36. This is back in the 50s, right? So then she'd walk into the classroom, and all the other moms were probably in their early 30s, maybe mid 30s. And here's my mom, mid 40s. And she was like a starlet. I just remember looking at her and thinking, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Now, granted, she was my mother, so I was a little biased. But, I told a story last time. Did I tell the story about the fire? I think I did.
And the Rolodex.
Right. So she changed her profession completely at 65. Just so you know, she was 65 when the fire happened and everything burned because computers hadn't been invented for the general public yet. So she was 65 when she decided to change this. And I always looked at that as like anything is possible at any age. And she even said, she has a quote, one of her quotes. I literally, let's see if I can find it, have a packet. I have a packet
Ooh, you do. They're like
of
little index cards.
quotes of hers. Yes, thank you for saying what they looked like. So one of them is, as long as you live, there isn't a set date or a line in the sand that says finished. And I feel that that is one of those things that you're like, that's right. I can start something whenever I want to. So for me, aging, growing older, it's not a big deal. It was a big deal when I turned 30 because I wasn't ever going to be in my 20s again. It wasn't a big deal to turn 40. I was pregnant at the time. 50 seemed okay. But I do remember when I was 50 thinking 10 years from now, I'll be 60 and going, what the F and A is that? And then I turned 60 and I was like, oh, this, okay.
I mean, there comes a point in your life when certain milestones are over where you forget how old you are. Like when someone asks, "Oh, how old are you?" You gotta think about it. You gotta do the math. What was my last birthday? Wait, what? Like, and I used to like think my sister was such a ditzer and airhead for not knowing, but I'm at that point now. And I get it. It's just not important, right? Whereas when you're a lot younger, you're like, I'm 9 3/4 and I earned those 3/4, right? And like, I've never been like, I'm 38 3/4.
I think I am kind of that way again, though. So I think I am sort of like I'm 64 and a half. Well,
But you
not
have some
quite.
cool milestones coming up, right? Like you get to prepare for retirement. And these
Well,
decades, they
what
matter
would
more and more as you do get past a certain point, I would imagine.
so I'm not sure that I would that's a really interesting thing to even think about preparing for retirement because I don't feel that I am preparing yet for retirement. I feel that it's a moving target.
Oh, sure.
However, I will say there sure is a lot of freedom that happens with getting older. There's so much freedom, one of which is I no longer have a period, and that is worth something, I think.
Isn't that so funny? When you finally get that physical freedom, you might have other physical limitations pop up, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like a sweet spot window, I imagine, where like life's really good as a woman.
I'm hoping I still haven't hit that yet, but no, there are some limitations right now when, I started to run again, and then I had a little bit of an injury. I got past
Hell,
that.
I house sat for my grandma at 28 and threw out my back for the first time, sleeping on someone else's too soft for me bed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I was like, nobody told me because it was like it was the week of my 28th birthday, and it was like nobody told me 28 is when it just all goes. But like I couldn't turn my neck, I couldn't get out of bed. People had to bring me to the chiropractor. I had never, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I never was so angry though when I went to, I think it was it was either their 30th or their 35th birthday party. And they had over the hill napkins
And
and
all
all
that
this
black.
black and everything like that, all the medication out. I got so angry. Well, first of all, I was probably 10 years older than they were at the time. And I was just angry with it. I was like, why would you think that at 35? And I
And
know you were talking about that last episode.
well, I grew up with a over the hill family and extended family birthday parties that at 30 and 40 did that. I have an aunt where she doesn't listen, my only aunt. I don't know how old she is to this day because for my youth, she was 28 for every birthday. I don't know when 30 happened. She didn't want to make 50 a big deal. I don't want to ask if 60 has happened or not yet. Like I celebrate her birthday every year, and I'm sure I could find her year of birth and do the math at some point. But like she really just the number was a bad thing. She lives a great and very active life, right? But it was just like sharing the number was a faux pas. But it was like, yeah, because birthdays were over the hill for you, right? Like, why would you celebrate that?
Right.
Whereas like for my 30th, I was like, going skydiving, who's coming? And like,
Yeah.
I have always refused. I have never seen a number or a decade as bad. And I just saw a TikTok today of a woman. She's like, I'm 44, and I'm tired of this like idea or concept that women are put to pasture at 40. And I was like, I thought that died when my parents turned 40. That's still a thing.
I think what happens is it's cyclical, Tracy. I think it dies and then it rears its head because patriarchy. Anyways, but I think that women also sometimes can do that to each other. And look at all the things that are available to people these days, as far as like um, different procedures you can have done, different stuff that you do to yourself, where when you have, say, an actress who's never done anything to herself, people are commenting, she's old. It's like, no, well, maybe.
And then you see the women who have done stuff, and when they reboot their shows, I'm not going to say her name or the show because I don't think it was fair that we were talking about it, but then they comment how bad they look and what a botched job it was. And there's this unsolicited commenting on people's appearance for weight, age, anything, right? Just we're over it. We're done.
I know what I look like. You don't have to tell me how you think I look.
I will say, I love that you brought up for women because, women, we already, whether or not you wear makeup, like I have a full face of makeup on today because I was preparing to talk to a surgeon, potentially virtually, and wanted to make sure I was going to be taken seriously. I already, as a younger female who I'm told looks and speaks younger than I am, I already drop my MBA, my master's, right? Like I drop my schooling, I drop where I work, I try and fit in conversation because I already know I'm not going to be taken seriously. But now I have people slightly older than me in my life that are talking about, they kind of work in like IT or kind of a boys club, men's area kind of a place. And they're like, yeah, I can't just be the hot, funny one anymore. Like I'm recognizing I'm aging and this and that. I'm really worried. Like I'm trying to get as high as I can, as fast as I can before I stop being taken seriously for my age and my appearance. Because like women have such a small window. We get like a decade in our late 30s into our 40s, sometimes up to 50, where people don't really know how old you are, right? And it really is about your work and your accomplishments. But prior to that, the number of times I was called young lady, or like how people view women 50 and over, like if you haven't gone through that, like you're looking at me, but like I know a lot of women who aren't taken seriously at work, and like, oh, so and so, just like there's someone's mom or grandma or something, and it's like, you wouldn't be here without her. She started this department. Like who are you?
And no, I agree. I do agree with you. It might be a little bit, I'm not sure when the last time anything like that happened to me.
You work in a woman-driven industry.
I do, but I also work with teams that are male heavy as well. And so, what I find myself doing, but it's something that I naturally do. I'm the comic relief, but I also know my stuff. And so when I speak, once people hear what I'm talking about, whatever subject matter expertise I may bring forward, then I can be the comic relief. And then I don't know if I do that so that people don't.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
How authentic is your personality at work? Sometimes do you wonder, like, what? Because like I know I'm getting, the alphabet after my name and just credentialing like crazy because there's certain people at the organization who they either don't know what someone my age looks like, or they still view that person as
because they think you're young. You're younger than
I'm young, and what do you know?
And,
I come from outside of our organization, so they don't know about my 20 years of experience, whereas everybody else that they know, they've worked with for 20 years, right? So there's like a trust factor. So I'm trying to prove myself that way for the opposite. But I know I read something. So I always was told I was young for my age, or I look young for my age, all this stuff. And I could kind of see it, kind of agreed with it. And then during lockdown, I was like, ooh, who are you? Like one morning I looked in the mirror and I was like, you got old. Like, who is this? And I mean, I didn't get that one, but I was like, are we not moving enough? Are we eating different? Is it not socializing, right? Like, is this pandemic related? Is this stress? Like, why do you think you look different? Nobody else is really noticing or commenting. Why do you? I read an article, just happenstance. I swear AI can read your brain.
Yeah.
That said that there are certain biomarkers in your blood at certain ages that technicians in the lab can predict your age within a 3-year window just by looking at your blood. And
Wow.
one of the markers is 36. I had just turned 36. And I was like, 36 that is a point where you will suddenly, like, if you didn't really feel like you're aging, when you hit these biomarker windows, that is a point when everybody ages, right? Like in this 3-year window. It's like 36, something in your 60s, and then something in your 80s. I was trying to find the article earlier and I couldn't find it. But I was like, yep, hit that. They're gonna know how old I am by my blood, because I certainly saw it in my own reflection and like how I used my body. And I was like, God, even our blood betrays us with the time.
Well, I don't know if I'd look at it like that, but I mean, I love this Satchel Paige quote where he says,
You redacted it in the notes.
Yeah, how old
Yeah.
would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
17.
Yep. Yeah. And I always say, well, I always think of myself as 36. That's just my age. That's my marker age. And apparently that's the age that you start aging. So I did not know that. So
Well,
then go ahead.
I was like, for me, not that I haven't had milestone moments or amazing memories or time, in the 20 years since then, but 17 was like when ease and flow was introduced into my life. Like, it was the time when I most remember just vibing and like living my best. And so, as you know, the show is called Brightly, and I'm just trying to get to like that bright and shiny place all the time. And so, like, on the days when I can't find it, like, she's who I tap into. Like, they talk about your inner child and your inner teenager. I'm just like, 17-year-old Tracy, time to vibe high, come on out. Like, I don't have to reparent her. I don't have to like find out what her trauma is and fix it. No, she was nailing life. Like,
yeah, and actually 36-year-old me was not nailing life. She was having quite a few problems, but it's just the age that I always think of. And maybe it's because, I don't know, it was a tumultuous year, but for whatever reason, and maybe that's why I always think of it. Maybe it was trauma. And maybe that's why I think I'm 36.
Maybe that's when the you are now finally came out, because of that year.
Yeah. It probably is. So the term growing old gracefully, I think at this point we can put it away. I love this quote from, his name was, I don't know if he's still alive, Dr. Robert Butler, who's the former CEO of the International Longevity Center. Longevity Center, you say? Anyways, he was asked about, what do you think about growing old gracefully? And he said, I would recommend growing old candidly, open-mindedly, and with flexibility.
Amen.
And I love it. I would also add, there are days that I feel like I'm growing old awkwardly, only because it's like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, how when you are a teenager and everything's just kind of awkward, especially if you're still growing.
Done this before?
Yeah, I've never done it before. I've never been this age before. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but it doesn't matter. I get to decide.
I've known for a few days now this was going to be the topic, and it didn't even hit me right now that I had a thought while driving earlier today. Somebody was being difficult, and how I spoke to them was kind of like how you'd speak to a little kid. I wasn't doing it passive aggressive. It was just like how I calm the room in the moment or whatever. And someone's like, wow, you must be great with kids. And I was like, we're all just kids. Like, this is just packaging, right? I was like, we are all children, right? Like, we put a little bit more responsibility on each other and accountability on each other, not to like scream and throw a tantrum. I absolutely want to scream and throw tantrums. And like, before the show, I didn't even realize how much things were bugging me until I trauma dumped on you for 30 minutes after I told myself, don't bring this up, even if she asks. Usually, like, after as a god, an adult wouldn't do that now, would they? Like, Oh, an adult would tell their
An
friends
adult
what's
would.
going on, right? But so
Yes.
I think all the time, especially when it comes to emotional things or stress, we're all just kids. We're all just kids, and we try and pack that down, but like,
Well, then I think that that's a really cool point, though, because the older we get, the more expectation is that we will be logical and calm and think things through. And we're still just kids. We're just older, like we're just in an older body.
people think that age equals experience, and I think that is ridiculous. Same with kind of what I was talking about with work before. I have a crazy amount of experience in so many different fields that I can apply in so many ways to the work I do. And I still look at life as like, God, I have so much to learn still, right? But then there are people who don't do anything for years. And like lockdown is a great example, you know, whether or not you utilize that time, you rested or you rotted, right? Like there's just like just because somebody has 70 years doesn't mean they used them well. And so I like you keep saying like there is no time that's right to do something. You can start things at any age. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't like look at people with expectations of experience or knowledge or know-how just because they look a certain age or way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sometimes we, we, what was I going to say about that? I feel like it just left my brain. But I
Is it
love that
age?
you said that we do set this expectation on somebody who's older that they are going to, how about not even experience, that they're going to be wise. Age does not equal wisdom. It really doesn't. I've seen it in real life. But also, if now what do I want to say? I don't know. I feel like there's this point in life, and I'm not sure that we ever prepare for this. Like, do do you ever say, okay, well, if I'm going to live to be whatever, 100, what am I doing today to make sure like that's
How can you be
that
kind to the
that's
person you will be tomorrow? I think of that
yeah,
all the time with all my body pain issue stuff
yeah.
and just I have physical
Mhm.
limitations because I've herniated the same disc at least 3 times now, right? And every time I see someone on TikTok come and show me mobility so that when I'm older, my body will still work, I get so bummed because I was like, God, I'm already behind and I still can't get started. Because I want to help future Tracy be able to get up off the couch without pain, right?
So
Like,
I have two things. First,
huh,
and both are quotes from my mom. The first is she would say to you, protect the health you have now.
love it. Yep, don't lose it.
Yeah. Don't like worry about what you can't do, but you protect the health you have now.
Love
And
that.
then the other thing that she said is take a realistic view of yourself and consider what you need to do to ensure your future will be fulfilling and satisfying. She had actually had productive in there, but I took it out.
Well, and so that's one thing I've been thinking a lot about lately in terms of finances, because
Yeah.
I have had multiple recessions in my life. I've been let go of a job once due to like a layoff or whatever. I have a lot of student loan debt. I've tapped into like I had a great 401k that when I was laid off due to the economy, they're like just cash it out because you're gonna lose it if you don't, right? Like whatever you lose in fees would be nothing compared to what you're going to lose because of the recession, right? And so it was great to have that money then, but then by the time I got a job following a layoff and many, another recession in between there, where I could get a 401k, I'm now a decade behind where I should be financially, right? And then I'm now at a point where I should do it again, and it's another gosh darn recession. And so I just keep thinking about like you say, like do what you can with what you have where you're at. Like there's time, don't put too much pressure. But I can't help but project to future Tracy and be like, God, I'm trying so hard to take care of you, but today me needs it too.
But you're only considering finances. I
Oh,
think
oh, everything.
that, okay, but that's what you were talking about was finances. Because I
Mhm.
do think that many of us try and plan with the finances, or at least know that we're not planning with the finances. But
Yeah.
do we know that we're not planning with like my
Survival.
mental health, or like what will bring me joy, or, anything like that?
Friends. Like there's all this stuff
Friends,
on loneliness
yes.
that tells you to live near your friends. Like have a cul-de-sac of your friends so that especially as you age, and then even
Okay,
we're moving into
Friends.
a culture where we're like, your kids shouldn't take care of you. That shouldn't be
No.
your retirement plan, right?
And also I'm just speaking to all the friends who might be listening. You better be listening, gosh sakes. I think that's a great idea. I think we all need to buy houses together and live together, live near each other.
Right. Have a little
Yes.
neighborhood where you can like walk over with each other and like hang out. And I think, you know, like all those 50+ communities pop up. And my grandma, she has a condo in a 55 and up apartment complex, and she's, you know, a little bit older than that, but that's around the time when she got interested in it, and she made new friends there because now you have.
Yeah.
And like during the winters, they walk the building together. She serves on committees. So even though now she's retired, she like has a little job where she has to do security checks. And like, and it's just so
But
great.
that gives
Like,
her purpose
it gave her
too.
purpose, and then her friends are there, but then she also lives somewhere that if people come over, like there's stuff built in that they can do. They even have rooms that you can check out, kind of like a hotel if you have family
Yeah.
and friends come.
Yeah.
Because when they first built that building, I kind of scoffed at it and was like, God, I need an affordable apartment and I'm 21. Like I could have used a nice new place to live out here. And now I'm like, huh, how about 40+ communities,
Right.
people, child free, have a little dog park.
I know. I used to think about that, but when I was 55, Nathan was 15 and
15.
still living with us, so couldn't do that. I think something you brought up, that your grandmother, right? It was your grandmother. Yeah. So made new friends at this place and then actually had a job and had to do something. And I think that that's the other key point that we forget about, that it's not just like becoming that magazine cover old timey grandma sitting in a rocking chair, unless your purpose is to knit. But I think that for many of us, we still want a broader purpose than just babysitting grandkids. Although I also, if my daughter's listening, I really need to see my granddaughter soon. I'm just putting that out there. Okay.
She
Thanks.
doesn't quite need a babysitter, but you'd
No,
like
she doesn't. I just want
you'd
to,
like
I
to
want to
be
hang out with
babysat.
her.
No, I love that because purpose gives you connection. It's not about giving you work, right? Because some people are like, I'm
Right.
retired, I'm not working. Like I hear, you know, two camps of people or three. So one are the ones that just sit in front of the TV and rot, right? Like you said, they just pick a chair and like, I'm too old to do anything. And like, they just wait to die. And I feel like I've done that this year, so I'm not doing it then. Like that's been the promise to future Tracy all year, was we've got our retirement out of us. We're in our 70s, spring break, going wild, right? I'm Benjamin buttoning my way through life, not through body, but through my mentality of age. But like people are either, oh God, I couldn't imagine ever quitting. Work is my life, and they don't leave, and that is a detriment to yourself and to the others around you, right? Like you should have more than home and work. You should have a third thing, a fifth, sixth, 10th thing in your life. But then there's the people that they don't want to give up their free time necessarily once they retire, and then they lose that sense of connection to other people, connection, like you said, purpose, like a place where people are expecting you. And it's like, you could just join a community garden. Like you don't have to get a part-time job, right? You don't need to like fill out taxes and clock in somewhere. Like you can just show up regularly at the same place when people take photos on Sunday at 10 o'clock of birds, right? Like you can just like, there's so many different ways to find purpose.
Yeah. During my mom's talks, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, apologies if I have, she would do this thing, and it happened after she turned 90. So during her talk, she would, and typically the audience was sort of baby boomer and younger, right? And she would say, all right, take your age. Let's just make it easy. I'm 90. Take your age, subtract it from mine. That number, that's how many productive, fulfilling years you have left. It doesn't have to end. Like you can plan for that whole time. But I have to tell you something, Tracy.
Oh.
The other day, I was reading this thing and it was like, take this quiz scientifically back to see how long you'll live until. And so I took this quiz and it was very long and it came back with 97, that I would live to be 97. And then it said, you have 33 years left. And I was like, 33? That's not enough. And then I calmed down. And then I said, wow, that's interesting.
So we had quite the storms yesterday, and I have a tin roof. And so when it rains, I wake up to machine gun fire.
Wow.
And it was raining. It was raining pretty hard. So it woke me up and I just couldn't fall back asleep. And I was kind of in a mood about a lot of things, as you heard about. And I don't know what it was, but just like, because my body hurt and I was really feeling like this is forever, one of those kind of grumpy things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like trying to give myself a pep talk, and I was like thinking about all the women in my family and how long they lived and like how many good years they had. And I was like, okay, you still have at least, like 40 like with it years, right? But like you can live for another 50 to 60 years.
Yes.
And so at first when I was like 40, like with it, still cognitively there, still functioning, probably still paying taxes and working, given the current situation in the country. But so at first I was like you and like, oh God, that's not enough. And then like I fell back into my body and I was like, oh, that's so many. And then I was like, you need to tell me I gotta figure out what to do with myself for at least 40 more years. I gotta keep paying a mortgage and driving a car and paying taxes and doing dishes. And I was like, oh, I guess it's a gift, but God, like, let's win the lottery so we can outsource that. Let's get Brightly off the ground, because like this is gonna be a really long 40 years of it. This is our base. And so I was like wavering between like that's not enough and how to make it cool and like, wait, we're in charge of that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's one of those balances too, that you want the years left to you, or I do, to be like, I want to be feeling good in my body, right? I want to be able to move and drive the car and all those things. And I will say, I mean, my mom was cognitively all there until she was, until like
The very
until
end,
she
yeah.
was almost the very end. Of course, once you're in hospice and you're getting, the drugs all the time,
Well, I think for her
different
though,
things
like
happen.
that was the sign to you guys. It was the very end, is when she kind of tapered off of who she had been for so long. Because same thing with my neighbor who I love, Joan. She lived
Right.
well into her 90s in a 2-story house with a basement on her own. And like
I
every
mean,
time I met
that's
her,
amazing.
I was like,
Yeah.
she's the goal, right? And it was
Right.
the last 6 months where it was like, oh, this is hard. And like you said, they moved in from hospice and did
Yeah.
stuff like that. But like that was the moment, like when I had a conversation with her, she had 2 strokes and was great. It wasn't until the third one when I was like, oh, okay, like now it's happening, because it was like Joan is gone, right? And then it wasn't long after that. But she lived for 93 years. She's just as old as my house. I think she was born in 1929 and she just died.
Cool. I just want to say this little thing, that your neighbor's name is Joan and my mom's name is Joan. So maybe your name has to be Joan. I don't know.
Change your name. No, I see these funny TikTok stitches all the time where they like show this article or like talk about this article where like based on current health and our awareness and healthcare and all this, you can live to be 130, and everyone stitches it and they're like, want to bet? Terrible time. I don't want to do that. Look at the world. It's just like,
I don't
130. If like aging progressed at a much different rate, 130 years is great, right? Like if we were vampires and like you got to pick your age and your visage of what you would look like and feel like, that's different. I've seen 112-year-olds. That doesn't look fun.
But that's the thing, and that's part of what my mom was saying too. Like, you have to take a realistic view and figure out what you need to do so that you can have fulfilling and satisfying rest of your life, whether that's 97 or 130. I'm not envisioning 130. I sure would like to crack 100 in a very healthy way.
Oh my God, you're totally gonna do it.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like, I think there are times that we're so much better about our older population and older women. And then there's other times that it just feels like it just smacks us back in the face again with society. But all I can do is just be who I am and show up as myself, and hopefully be a model for other people around me who are younger, and to let them know it's okay. You can have long hair and be in your 60s.
Right. Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I didn't even grow up with, but I've heard other women older than me mention stuff like that, where it's like, what do you mean you can't have gray hair? What do you mean your hair can't be long? What do you mean you can't wear this? And so I'm so glad, and I so hope my generation, I mean, maybe I have hangups I don't know about yet, but I love that. I mean, so we've talked about, like, we started talking about time again, but more through the perspective of aging. And if you haven't looked into it yet, I encourage everybody to look into the Blue Zones. It's a book. I think he has a cookbook now. It's actually a local Minnesota researcher and author. But he goes to, like, I think it's 7 of places around the world where people live the longest.
Yes.
He kind of reverse engineers why they think that is, based on not just asking somebody that gets to 101 and they're like, cigarettes and booze. No, this is more like, why do these communities tend to live longer than others? And it typically comes down to diet and activity and socialization, right? Maybe a little free healthcare. He didn't talk about that, but I could imagine a lot of these places have it. But I want to flip it back and go back to time when it comes to aging, because as you age, I think a lot of reasons why people just kind of sit in the chair and knit and like, this is it for me. And then like they don't enjoy their last years because it seemed, like you said, 40 isn't enough, right? Like it seems to fly by. Time goes faster as we get older because we're introduced to less new stimuli. And so the more routine, the more normal day to day, the more everything is the same. Time is relative, so time is going to pass really quickly because it's same old, same old. Your brain doesn't have to take in any new
That's another thing that my mother says. Really? Avoid the ruts. Yes, she's like, avoid the ruts. Stop doing your habitual things every single day. Yeah, it's so funny. Yes.
If you want these next 40 years or however many you want to have, if you want the time that you spend aging, the time you have left to feel longer, do more new to you things.
Exactly.
Don't use GPS. People who read maps and don't use GPS and allow themselves to get lost or try to find their way back, I mean, do it safely, have younger brains than people who take the same road every day to work, right? So
I shall never see anyone on time again. I'm just letting you know that.
Start to wander, read new books, try new restaurants, go to new cities. And, you don't even, what is it? The New York Times has like that 36 hours in kind of travel piece where they go to a different city and like just do cool stuff for 36 hours. Cool. I can't afford to like fly the country right now and do that. And so I would do like 9 hours in this town that I've heard of over there. And there's a hiking place I've never been to, a restaurant I've been to, and shops, and like just explore.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, goodness, the time has flown. If this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
With that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.
Did we